Good morning, welcome back to United 2B. A few stories to go through. UGARTE, Ederson, more Baleba stories coming out from Fabrizio and other sources as well, with Ben Jacobs posting things regularly on these topics. But if you're new to the channel, please get involved, subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you're watching on a replay, please let me know what you think about some of these deals we're going to be discussing today as well, because the prices are going to start changing a little bit. I think what we are seeing now is we're actually getting a bit more information about how much potential players might cost. But just to quickly show you, probably the least surprising news ever is that Agate is going to be leaving Manchester United. I think most people I know have actually thought that was going to happen probably for most of this season, and I think it's probably been confirmed that he's just not getting into the team. He's going to have to go somewhere else, but that does mean that Manchester United will definitely sign two midfielders to replace Casemiro and Agate. They're probably going to be signing three, and I don't think Toby Collier will necessarily be featuring much next season either. So that's probably one thing that I think that just get the money. I have no idea how much Agate is going to bring in. That would be a complete mystery, but I think that even if we're talking about 25, 30, it's still going to help get some deals done. And I'll just say a quick talk about Belieber first is that there are quite high chances, apparently, that Manchester United might do some sort of deal behind closed doors. I don't know quite what that means, considering Manchester United's deals are pretty much in the public domain and will be talked about pretty much daily. So I don't know if they're trying to keep things a bit quiet regarding price, but we'll have to see what they say about that one. And also, Manchester United making contact with Ederson is something which is no, not really surprising because they were linked to him for quite a long time. I would actually be quite surprised if Manchester United did sign Ederson, though. Put it that way. I know he's a bit cheaper. I think it's like £42 million, 50 million euros. You're looking at a similar sort of price to Agate a couple of years ago. So same sort of money, experienced, decent player. But I think Manchester United are looking maybe more Premier League, younger, possibly, or maybe a higher ceiling as well. But again, a player that's been pushed out of his team, Atalanta, want to make some profit. It looks like he'd prefer to go to Atletico. I mean, Atletico Madrid just don't want to meet Atalanta's valuation at the moment. So that's one that I think is going to drag on. But I don't think Manchester United should really be getting involved with Ederson. I think there's other options out there that would be preferable. But people can debate about that one. But before we go into the potential kind of idea about how much it's going to cost, the price, etc., as well, and I know I've said this myself, I think there's other options out there that should certainly be considered. Let's just go through this and see what people are thinking regarding this one. So, I'm going to go from the start and go for people and try and go for a few views regarding this one. So, thanks Tom for that comment. I just saw that, so appreciate that, Tom. I'm not sure if I've seen your account in the comments. So welcome to the channel. And yeah, we've been going like quite a long time on a different channel, but this is relatively new on this one. But I'll just read your comment above it as well, saying £70 million for a player that's been kept out of the squad by 40-year-old James Milner. Yeah, at the moment, £70 million seems to be a pretty good price from a Brighton point of view. And I think from a Manchester United point of view, we're looking at no, from Brighton's point of view, they're looking at what deals that what players have they got to sell, and believe is probably going to be the one player that they sell that's going to bring the most money. I think you've got Van Hecke as well. It could be going as well, potentially 35 million ish. But if Brighton are looking to try and sell to try and revamp the squad a little bit, they're actually doing pretty well this season. I think they see Belieber as going to be someone they're going to cash in. It's their business model. They want to cash in on Belieber. They weren't quite ready towards the end of last season, but they've got targets lined up to replace him. So they want to get the maximum possible price. I would say that the £100 million talked about a year ago, there's no way now because there's a lot of midfielders out there that are going to be significantly cheaper. But I wonder whether Brighton are thinking, what is the most we can get from Manchester United? And with Manchester United, that if the price becomes too high, Alex Scott is a good one. João Gomez, we talked about yesterday, is a good option. And we could be looking at potentially a few other options as well. Like he shouldn't be costing the same as Too Many if Too Many costs 70 million. So I think there's like still negotiations to do with this. And I think United aren't going to be paying. Well, I hope so. I hope United are not going to be paying crazy money because you never know with United. It's a bit unpredictable. But I was thinking when I spoke about this a couple of days ago, I think I put a price range in like 40, 50, sort of 60, 70, and the most favourable top end price was probably closer to 60. Whether this deal includes add-ons, we'd have to see. But Mark is saying only winners with this deal are Brighton. I mean, it looks that way, doesn't it? And to say this, in terms of like looking at this, I can't disagree. I think everybody appreciates that Brighton didn't do, so Baleba didn't do particularly great at Brighton considering the previous year. So it seems that this price is based on this price is pretty based on what did Baleba do 18 months, 2 years ago. I think that's fair. Peter, welcome to the chat as well. You're saying that Believers are £55 million player max. So maybe what's going to happen is, I think, do you remember, if you remember last year, and if you remember what happened with transfers, we saw some like very big transfers. I think we saw Wissa going for nearly 60 million. We saw some like Alanga costing 55 plus 5. So with this one, I think like the valuation of players is very difficult depending on like what happens in the market. Because for example, if you're looking at some of the midfield targets like Alex Scott, you're looking at Baleba, you're looking at Wharton, I think most people would look at that and say, actually, probably Baleba would be maybe similar money to Alex Scott based on how the players have done over the last couple of seasons. But I think most people would say Adam Wharton should cost more. Anderson should certainly cost a lot more. Tonali will cost more. But if those players do end up costing that potentially a potential one of those players might be costing 100 million or slightly more, then maybe that's where the market is. It'd be generally interesting to see because 50 million pounds seems to be like a kind of a, probably a bottom price list for a lot of players like Alex Scott or Baleba or other players we talk about in terms of like coming across from maybe looking at Angela Stiller. It'd be genuinely interesting to see what does 50 million pounds buy you in summer 2026. So it might be disappointing actually that the prices might be edging up, and it might be that because it's a World Cup year, there might also be lots of people trying to do deals a bit earlier. So I'm hoping Manchester United actually do deals a little bit quicker because we've been like very, very slow in the past. And World Cup, a good World Cup for some players might push prices up. I think that's why Anderson will probably go before that happens. And so if you want to compete with City and Arsenal, we need 11 players on the pitch that can consistently deliver. I suppose when you're looking at it, you think like a Dennis Irwin, consistently good, consistently 7, 8 out of 10, no kind of dips in performance, at least for the majority of players. Like you look at, I suppose the models of consistency would be like a Wayne Rooney, where on a bad day, Wayne Rooney's still an elite player. On a bad day for Dennis Irwin, he's still one of the best players on the pitch. And I think that's what you kind of actually try and need. I think with Belieber, then if Manchester United signed Baleba last summer, he's a first team player. And at the moment, like Casemiro he's gone. Ugarte is going to be gone. Carlos Baleba, that if he's signed first, that it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a first team player in a lot of games either, because you'd imagine Koeman's still at this point in time still going to be one of the first names on the team sheet. Carlos Baleba will be another one, but if Manchester United actually signed three midfielders, it's going to be a bit different, isn't it? Say Agate would suit Chelsea. I think someone said Agate would 100% suit Newcastle. I think Agate's got an incredible agent. Morning United for the win in Mendes. So I don't know where Agate is going to be going either. Say City, Liverpool, Arsenal will get even stronger this summer. So we're on a constant catch up. This is why you kind of need to put in a really good window, don't you, to try and bridge the gap. Bridging the gap with City feels unobtainable at the moment because they bought two top quality players in January, something no other club actually did. And a morning United die says 70 million Brighton have lost the plot. This will be generally interesting to see because Kaizen says 40 to 45, say 40 plus 5 max. I think at the moment that's probably like João Gomez money, roughly. Well, actually, no, João Gomez might be about 40-ish, but there is potential that Leeds can offer a bit more, which is a bit bizarre actually, considering that's what people think is going to happen. I think when you're looking at João Gomez and Angela Stiller as an option, I think that the fact that they're going to both cost less than Belieber does make it does make it a bit of a strange one, doesn't it? And so Lumen says Belieber played great last season. Price went up. Brighton didn't sell. So what's Belieber supposed to do then? I think Belieber does have an injury as well. So Belieber does have an injury. I think that's one of the issues that hampered him a little bit. It looks like minutes are being managed by Brighton. I think with Brighton, and this again, this is a bit of a guess, but if you consider Evan Ferguson, injury issues have really destroyed that player's career, and hopefully he can rebuild things. But if you look at Baleba, Brighton didn't want to sell him last season. They said last season they didn't want to sell him. They needed him. They didn't have time to get a replacement at that stage in the window because we went in there, I think about a week to go. We went in there right at the end of the window, tried to get Baleba. Brighton didn't want to sell him at that point, and there wasn't many options on the table. It looked then like Brighton managed his minutes over the course of the season. I mean, Brighton as a club have actually done okay. Baleba, I think, he didn't reach the heights he did the previous season, but Manchester United, I think they're judging by that season where he was incredibly good. I think United are just assuming that. Again, this is my guesswork. I think United are actually saying they think he's got a high ceiling, and that's why the price is going to be quite high. So you're paying a bit on potential, but I know, a lot of people watching today are probably thinking actually that's a bit of a gamble regarding that one. And what other clubs are linked to Belieber, says Mark. At the moment, there seems to be very few clubs linked to Belieber, but the reason is that okay, saying no one linked to Belieber, you could say right, nobody's linked to Belieber. That could be that he's not as good as we think he is. Like if Manchester United are linked to a player and nobody else wants them, then does that mean that that player not particularly desired by other clubs? But the problem is, last summer, Baleba agreed terms with Manchester United, pretty much came out and said he wanted to join Manchester United. When that happens, no other club's going to look at him. So, unfortunately, because Manchester United made their interest known, then there wasn't actually going to be other clubs going for him because if you think about Cunha and Mbeumo, once Manchester United had got these players saying they wanted to sign for them, like Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, only Newcastle tried to get them, and I think Spurs were linked, but no one was seriously actually trying to buy those players once they said they wanted Manchester United. So it's a difficult situation. I think once a player says he wants to go somewhere else, then clubs are going to be somewhat backing off a little bit. I think so. Leave Belieber alone. Let Brighton waste their time. Go get someone else. So one thing I said was I was talking about this probably I think 1 to 2 days ago, maybe a couple of days ago. We were talking about Belieber, and my question was going to be if you're looking at Baleba and if Manchester United want to buy Baleba, that's one thing. Paying £70 million is a little bit of a different thing. That, like we said, there is no other clubs actually trying to get him at the moment. So it would make you think that if Manchester United want to do a deal, they don't have to meet Brighton's valuation. They can offer lower. And how would it change if Manchester United actually went, right, we're going to buy Alex Scott. We're going to make an offer for Alex Scott. We're going to get him in. He's going to be our first summer transfer window signing. Then what does that do with Brighton and Carlos Baleba? If Manchester United actually then go, no, we're going to buy Alex Scott and we're going to buy Angela Stiller. If you're Brighton, you've got a player that wants to join Manchester United. You've got no other clubs actually looking at him. If you think about it, when it gets to the summer transfer window, most clubs don't suddenly decide to buy a player they weren't looking at before. So if Manchester United are, there's a few players that we're looking at and quite a lot of midfield targets, but there will be a few people that we're not considering at all. I don't think we're going to suddenly switch those players because when you get to the summer transfer window, the players that move to certain clubs, those clubs will have been monitoring this player for months, if not longer. So some potential targets might be going back a year. So if United, the fact that United almost got the fact that United got Baleba to come out and pretty much say, "I want Manchester United," agreed terms with Manchester United. I think most clubs have then gone right. We're not going to be looking at Baleba. So I think if Manchester United don't buy Baleba, I think Brighton have got a bit of a problem here. So even though it's kind of a seller's market, a lot of the time I would just say with this one, I think Manchester United can push the price down a little bit, like 100%. I think the price can go down. So I'm not going to say Baleba's a terrible player. I think at the right price you can get a good deal, but this could be the best opportunity for Manchester United to actually get a good price. Welcome, old man, to the chat. Good to see you, and morning, Kazi, as well. So your made more sense with the purchase and more consistent than Baleba and was cheaper. I think you make a good point as well. So Baleba threw his toys out the pram. So why don't? So yeah, I think with this one, I think a lot of people are thinking if Baleba wanted to get a move to Manchester United, the best thing he could do would be to be a standout performer this season. And there's a few players that, yeah, when they haven't got the move they wanted, they've just played incredibly well, and they've just proved that they're good enough for a move. Look at Anderson. Like, man, Anderson's been linked to loads of clubs, and you can see the performances he's putting in on the pitch. You can see how Forest have improved loads over recent weeks. Morning to Ian in the chat. It says, "Good morning. Carlos is a quality player. Unfortunately, after the season he's had, say 50 million would be the maximum price for you. I think United want to get three deals done. I think 50 million feels actually not too bad. I suppose it depends with like what do you get 50 million in the transfer window? We're going to find out. Maybe we're going to find out in a couple of months whether 50 million is enough to get Alex Scott done. If Alex Scott can go for 50 million on the back of a good season, then could you get Carlos Baleba for similar sort of money? I think it's going to be difficult to get it for 50, get him for 50 million. I think 70 feels like because of what we're seeing in the market. I don't think Baleba should cost 20 million pounds more than Angela Stiller. I don't think he should cost the same sort of price as Too Many. Like for me, if Too Many actually is available for 70 million, I think that kind of sets a benchmark of like should Tonali cost more than Too Many? I don't think he should cost too much more. It looks a little bit like Newcastle are putting a price tag that's a bit too high. I mean, the thing is, these players are good, but I think £100 million. I don't think you need to spend £100 million to get these get a good enough player. But Mark's saying we can't compete with City. Well, we're actually above Liverpool at the moment, and I think Liverpool have bought decent players, but Liverpool probably overpaid. And Vert's got a good goal yesterday, but they're playing against Crystal Palace team. They've got nothing to play for. So I would say Liverpool's transfers haven't really been amazing. Um, okay, so you're questioning whether is Baleba actually ready to step up to Manchester United is another one. That the demands at Manchester United are going to be way more pressure, way more scrutiny. And if a move to Manchester, if being linked to Manchester United damages your form, this is what a few people have said. If being linked to Manchester United damages your form, then that could be potentially a red flag, which I think is a fair point. Maybe the other one is going to be, I think behind the scenes, no one really knows what the kind of injury situation with Believer is. I think there's some suspicion that he has been carrying an injury for a bit longer than we realise. But again, I think Brighton are definitely a club. You got to be a bit careful with Brighton because they have done this in the past where players that they have put very high price tags on have then on gone on to have some injury issues. So I'm a bit suspicious of Brighton as a club generally. I think when you look at Bournemouth, they're actually bringing through very good players. They seem to be a bit more sensibly priced as well. And I think if they want if they want 70 for Baleba and Semenyo goes for 65, who was on fire this season, I think it's a little bit too expensive. And Tiger Claus says maybe 60 million, but I would battle for too many first. If Man United got too many first, I think that the transfer window would massively change, but it's going to be genuinely quite difficult to get too many. Too many doesn't even know if he wants to play for Real Madrid or leave. So I think it's going to just take a little bit. I think it's going to. There are some deals that are going to take a long time, aren't there? So there are some deals which, like too many, for example. I think that's the sort of deal that could drag on absolutely loads. And say so yeah, one of our bogey teams. I'm doing a calling show tonight, 7 p.m. I think 7 p.m. ish will be the start, but there will be a Brighton fan coming on as well, so we will be actually finding out a little bit about their team tonight. And so the reason you pay 50 million for him is because you could get. I think when you look at 50 million, then you could get a gourmet. Alex Scott could be got for maybe that sort of money. I mean, Bournemouth say they want 65 for Alex Scott, so I think United think 50-ish, 55 could get that deal done. But I think if you're looking at 70 million for Baleba, I think all those players listed are actually cheaper. So if you look at Angela Stiller, if you look at Gomez, and you look at Alex Scott, those are three players that potentially you could get for a decent amount of time. Mark said you're disappointed I've not mentioned Buwadi for a while. I just don't see any links with Buwadi to Manchester United. I have mentioned him trying to think where I mentioned him. I definitely mentioned him yesterday because we did. we did talk about potential younger players that could come in. So when we're looking at Hayden Hackney as a cheaper option, I think Brady was mentioned as one that would be. Now maybe Brady would be a player that could come in and would be someone that's going to be more of a, I suppose, more of a one for the future type signing. But you would be looking at then possibly having more experienced players in the midfield. But no, we have mentioned him. I did see something like a quick graphic I thought I'd show. I saw this earlier today, and it's not an exclusive list, but it just goes to show that there's quite a few midfield targets. One thing I did notice was that whoever made this picture put Alex Scott in there twice. So I think they really like Alex Scott. Well, they put the names maybe a bit wrong in that one, but looking at this though, Carlos Baleba is there. But you also got Camavinga, Tchouaméni, you've got Hackney, you've got Wharton, you've got Anderson, there's Amadou Nana, there as well. There's a lot of options. And I think that when you look at Baleba's a good option. Like as in like there's nothing wrong with the player over the last say 2 years ago. The question is going to be form recently has been disappointing. And I think the question is going to be if Manchester United didn't get him, there wouldn't really be much panic, would there? Because we've actually got an incredible amount of options. So you could probably pick a few players on that list and say, if we didn't get Baleba, we could get multiple players and not worry too much. There isn't one single player out there. I think that if Man United think, right, if we don't get him, the transfer window's ruined. There's just lots of options there. Let's say Stiller will need time to adapt to the Premier League. So you think Angela Stiller's a bit of a risk? I think Angela Stiller, if you're signing three players, I think the risk becomes somewhat reduced. Where yeah, if you're looking at that, it's yeah, it's not really a problem. So I don't think it's really. I think having a risky signing is if you buy three players in, the risk is lower. Bruno Fernandes is already there. Kobe Mainoo's already there. If you're looking at players that have played in the Premier League as well, if you're looking at, say, you're looking at maybe Angela Stiller plus Baleba plus Alex Scott or plus Tonali or plus Tchouaméni, there'd be three players there that essentially like one of them could play alongside Kobe Mainoo. That would already feel like an upgrade to Agate, and potentially it could function a bit better than Casemiro over a lot of Premier League games as well. I say Believers played alongside say Jack Hinselwood for most of last season. I say he's played Cam 10. There's been a lot of rotations in CDM. Maybe the chemistry's off. It could be. It could be. I mean, Brighton. There's a few different factors in there. I think there's a few different reasons why things are. The thing is though, from a Manchester United point of view, it doesn't really matter if the chemistry's off or there's an injury issue. The point for us is has Believer been playing really well last season? Then I would say he hasn't been, and it hasn't been working out for him. So that means that if United are serious about getting this player, I think there's a lot of reasons we can go to Brighton and say that's too much, that's too expensive. So I think whatever the reasons are, I think it's definitely Manchester United could go to Brighton and say, look, he hasn't been playing particularly well. The form has been off, whatever the reason is, whether it's injury issues. Well, you look at it and say there's a reason why we're not going to go for him. I think we've got him Buwadi because I thought United said die. I think Buwadi would have been someone we could have got for maybe half the price 18 months ago. But again, that's kind of like speculation because I don't think Lille want to sell him. So if we'd have actually gone for a serious effort to get Buwadi last summer or in January, he might have still cost quite a lot of money. So I think that a lot of people think they could be cheap deals, but when you've got a player that's good, I don't think they're going to sell him cheap. So if I had to choose between Elliot Anderson and Alex Scott, I'd pick Elliot Anderson. But if I think, is it realistic for Manchester United to go for Elliot Anderson? Like we can make an offer, but I think Elliot Anderson might be Manchester City bound. In which case, I think Alex Scott is a good player and potentially a very good price. So I'm not really completely tied to one player. I think you just have to be realistic and say what's happening. Natasha says United seem to be going for second class players, and what happens to the best in class? And what would you think, Natasha, in terms of like what would be your best in class? Is like too many? So I would say if we're looking at players that we're linked to, and say what have they done over the last few years, I think Tchouaméni has to be up there. I would say Tonali has to be quite high, and Eddie Anderson's certainly going to be there. But those are probably for me maybe the three players where if you're going to spend quite big money, they might be the options. Assuming like whatever's happened with Tchouaméni, where we're kind of hoping that he does decide to leave Real Madrid, and we're hoping that there's like no injury issues there at all. It is that sort of price. But no, what would be just a question for Natasha and everybody else in the chat is who would you go for if you thought right, pick two players to make Manchester United's midfield suddenly to a match for Manchester City? Like, should we go for someone like Offender Fernandez has been linked to Man City? Is he a viable target? And but welcome, Yoli. You're saying that the Southampton player, Shea Charles, was not on that list. You think he's the cheapest defensive midfielder we can get and could be someone that's very good or can turn into it. I suppose, yeah. Do you think that that's the thing with when you said he could be very good, he could potentially say being another Ugarte seems a bit, well, I think Ugarte is now becoming like a, what's the word? Unfortunately for Ugarte, he's now becoming a term for players that don't work out. And that's what Ugarte was, a player that didn't really work out. But no, I think with this one, what you're saying there is that he is a good player and potentially could be a very good player in the future. I think he might be deemed a little bit risky. I think you almost have to play in the Premier League at least well for a season. And I think with Baleba, what he did was he played well 2 seasons ago and then not quite so good. So for United to keep up with the top two, they should be paying top whack for the best players. And uh, the problem I think is that what would be the best two options in the to buy at the moment? And I think that the annoying thing is the best players they may not choose Manchester United, so that's probably one of the problems. I say shame we're not mentioned more with James Garner. He's had a really good season. No, he's definitely stepped up loads, isn't he? I think the problem with James Garner is like Everton are going to tie him down to a longer contract, I believe. Everton always charge very big prices. They definitely, what's the word? They Everton definitely want to charge you a lot as well. Look at Brantwaite, etc. So I think James Garner also would he want to join Man United again? Be up, Cody. In church, checking out Agarte news. Uh, welcome to chat, Cody. Saying Anderson to City, Tonali to Art. I suppose actually, I kind of forgot a little bit about the Tonali situation, but his agent was pushing a move to Arsenal in the summer. Are Arsenal ready to spend that sort of money on another midfielder? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that, but then they would have like they've already got Declan Rice. Then that would that fix Arsenal's team? I think Arsenal's team just needs more goals, needs more attacking flair a lot of the time. Probably needs a new head coach, if I'm honest. Diamonde to Liverpool is one that I've seen linked as well. But again, it is difficult, isn't it? Like Liverpool are getting Champions League money every single season. They're going to want to pay to keep up there. So it is difficult. The problem is if Anderson wants to go to Manchester City and they can't really do much about that, I believe Tonali would probably go to Manchester United if Manchester United made that offer. I mean, Tonali wants to win. He wants to leave Newcastle to go to a better club. Manchester United, if we sign Tonali, we probably have to prove that we're either like good enough. But I think if United don't do very well over the next couple of seasons, is Tonali one of those players that he will probably push for an exit? I'd imagine. You think Anderson might stay? So so they need to buy a backup. Sorry, you're not the first person to say that, but you're not the first person to suggest Anderson might stay at Nottingham Forest. That would be genuinely interesting if that was the case. But I mean, can Forest, if they get European football, that they could possibly keep. But no, I would imagine Anderson would be off, but we'd have to see. But say only best in class defensive midfielder is too many. And say Anderson and Wharton are not best in class. Too many is the one person that has done it over years. Like that's why too many is the most interesting, I think, in terms of is he actually available or is it just a situation where is it a contract negotiation at Real Madrid? No one really knows. It would be really good to see that if Manchester City do actually move Rodri on and he goes to Real Madrid then because that's what it looks like. It looks like Manchester City are looking at Enzo Fernandez and Anderson. If one of them or both of them go and Rodri leaves, does that mean that too many is then not required. It looks like Real Madrid want to keep too many, or I think what this means is I think Real Madrid want to extend too many's contract, which effectively means they can push the price up. So too many's got 2 years left on his contract. If he doesn't sign it an extension, that will start ticking down. If it goes to 1 year next season, the price will probably go down a lot. So I think Real Madrid sensibly have got this decision now. They either sell too many or they extend his contract. They're trying to extend his contract to protect his value. I think that's what's happening. Too many, I think at the moment he's 50-50 whether he actually wants to leave. If he does want to leave, does he want to go to Manchester United? That's the difficulty to try and guess. I think most people think that that's the case, though. I think most people think that Rodri's going to go to Real Madrid, Anderson's going to go to City. Too many's got a difficult decision. It would be good. It'd be good to see like too many actually say I want to leave or find out something regarding Rodri. Unfortunately, we've got a few more games. Manchester City are in a title race, so I don't think we're going to see a big story about Man City letting Rodri go at this point in time. Well, so yeah, this is the question I've got as well. Why would you leave the biggest club in the world, so which is Real Madrid, to join Manchester United? Like, why would you do that? So I don't know. It is difficult. I suppose you would say like with Casemiro, he was being moved out and replaced by too many. But if you're too many, the only thing I can think of is if too many is now not going to get into the team. If you're a player at Real Madrid and effectively you get him replaced. It wouldn't be the first player to be. You could look at probably Angelo Di Maria was probably a top player before he joined Manchester United. I remember him playing a strong role in the Champions League win, like one of the wins they got. So Di Maria was a good player for Real Madrid. He was still getting in the first team, but they moved him on because they tend to do this. When you've got a squad like Real Madrid, you are going to move on good players, and Tchouameni is a very good player. So that's why it would be that would be a bit surprising. I think if he chose Man United, but if you're going to be forced out of Real Madrid and there's not many options, maybe there's something going on there, isn't there? The Hexian says it could be because of Rodri. Yeah, if Rodri's coming in and you're losing your place, then there could be a factor, couldn't there? So Yali says there's something wrong at Real Madrid. So there's something going on with Real Madrid as well. There are a lot of players that are looking at leaving, but Real Madrid wants a bit of refresh. It looks like they're going to be not winning many trophies this season. And what tends to happen is they'll get a new manager. The president of Real Madrid will want to sign some players to appease the fans. Rodri's got a Ballon d'Or. I think that might be a factor. There's no doubt that Rodri was a good player a few years ago, but I think the fact that you can buy a Ballon d'Or winner, it's like decades ago they bought David Beckham. He was one of the higher profile players. They bought, yeah, they had this Galactico team as well. So I think with Real Madrid, they'll bring on people for different reasons. But I think I think the Ballon d'Or he won is going to be something that they'll look at that as being potentially a benchmark that he's going to be a better option than too many. Though I think from my point of view, if I had a choice between Rodri and too many, I'm going for too many because I think Rodri's like the injuries are too they're too what's the word? I think it's like too much of a risk. But if it's Real Madrid's risk, I think it's absolutely fine. Too many's played loads of football the last couple of years, so I don't worry too much about his fitness. And there should be a thorough medical as well, hopefully. And Cake says we have got some of the biggest pulling power in the Premier League. The problem is the owners are reluctant to pull. So the fact we managed to get good players in, finishing 15th, I think we got a surprising pull. The Premier League as a whole does have that as well. And if you look at, say you look at Tonali, Tchouameni, and Anderson, that's effectively three top quality players. And if you're looking at, say, Arsenal, Manchester United, City as being those teams, I think Liverpool are looking to spend a huge amount of money on potentially other parts of their team. They need to look at defence as well. Maybe they need to look at goalkeeper situation, but they've got other issues as well, and they also spent 500 million last year. So they also might get a different head coach. So Liverpool are by no means like suddenly doing well. They beat Crystal Palace yesterday, but Crystal Palace are literally finished their season, haven't they? But it said we're looking to do so negotiation for weeks over 5 million. We seem to be dragging off heels. If you remember last summer, there was definitely this is one where I say look at the money. with Manchester United. I said this last summer that the way football financial situations worked out is over the previous 3 years, Manchester United made a massive loss about 4 years ago. So the books are different. So last year we had a massive struggle to spend the money. We had a problem getting the deals over the line because we had this big debt and we were getting quite close to like the sort of PSR issues. This year we don't have financial problems. This is the first year actually. If you remember last year, all the players who wanted to move on, we actually just loaned out. So we loaned out Anana, we loaned out Rashford, we loaned out Sancho, and Anthony went for a smallish transfer fee in the end. But this summer, though, Rasmus Højlund we loaned out as well. But this summer, these players actually get sold. So those players between them should bring in 100 million. But even if you're like being conservative, Rasmus Højlund's got an agreement to go for about 36 to 38 million. And if you add other transfer fees on top, Agate is definitely going to go. Agate will be, I think, how much does Agate going to cost? Even if we think he's not great, he's got to be 25 million, 30 million, that sort of price point for another team. And I think that's going to bring in decent money. So I think the money will be there, but also the difference is going to be the money's there, but there's loads of options. Like, so I think everybody watching and myself, we could probably reel off about five, six, seven midfielders that would all cost £50 million roughly. And it'd be easy to get three midfielders in the summer that cost less than say 170, 180 million. So looking at this one, saying, how is Omar Brada so slow at his job? So I think it's probably not Omar Brada, is it? The problem might be, and just a quick note on this, the problem might be is that if Omar Brada's making decisions and he's then passing the information on to Ineos, and then they need to make a call, they probably need to actually get the green light from the Glazers, who are still the majority owners of the club. So it has to go through several people, doesn't it? So Omar Brada will have to go to Jim Radcliffe. Jim Radcliffe will have to get the information from the Glazers, and the Glazers probably um, not the most proactive either. So they're pretty slow. So there's definitely a structure at the club which is not very efficient as well. So what people are forgetting is not buying in January helped us with financial fair play as well. And the rules are changing. The rules are now going to be you can only spend a certain percentage of your turnover. Manchester United has a big turnover. Manchester United has a low wage bill. So financially, we're kind of in the best position we've ever been. There is maybe potential. There is maybe potential that maybe teams like Chelsea might have a problem if they miss out on the Champions League, and then that's going to be something that happens for the foreseeable future. They might have an issue with trying to. They need to actually keep selling players for a profit, but no one's going to buy Gittins for a profit. No one's going to buy Garnacho for a profit. So Chelsea's model is kind of falling off the hitting the buffers a bit, isn't it? So yeah, we actually made a profit in the first quarter of this year with no Champions League football and pretty much no cup football. So as weird as it is, Manchester United is actually quite financially sorted at the moment. And when we got Champions League football, it's effectively like giving Manchester United an extra 100 million to spend. So finishing 15th last season, we'd say that we're finishing potentially 12 positions higher in the Premier League. That's about 36 million pounds worth of prize money. If we're going to get Champions League football, that's about another 90, 100 million. So that's 130 million extra by finishing third instead of finishing 12th, which is, when you think about it, it's absolutely crazy money. That's why some of the teams at the top, Manchester City and Liverpool, can spend insane money. So the difference between finishing third or fourth and finishing 15th is over £100 million in the transfer window. And that's year on year. That's the difference it's going to be. There's a lot of money there. Do I think the Glazers will spend 300 million, so including the money raised from sales? I hope so. I'm looking at, but I'm also thinking that if you spend wisely, you don't need to actually spend crazy money. So spending 100 million on Baleba last year would have been insane, but 70 million this year, or 60 million, or going for Alex Scott instead, or getting too many. If it came down to this, it could be a situation where in 2 months' time we could say, right, should we could be doing a stream where we go, should we buy too many, or should we buy Baleba for 70 million? Because effectively they might be priced the same by those respective clubs. In which case, unless there's something wrong with too many, unless he's actually got some injury issues, then there's no chance we pay 70 million for Baleba. I would go say get too many, get Angela Stiller and get Alex Scott. Go there you go, done. If Brighton want to get involved, they can lower the price significantly. I think that's the power is with Manchester United, I believe. But you have to be I think you have to be somewhat proactive. I think you have to actually get one of these deals done quickly to start with. That's why I would say that for me, two deals that could be done, or maybe three, João Gomez could be done, Angela Stiller could be done, and Alex Scott could be done. Like one of those deals could be done quite quickly. We could speak to these teams behind the scenes and go, right, we want to buy this player. Here's the money we're going to give you, and we could actually go get that deal done quite quickly. So is Carrick going to be the manager? At the moment, at the moment, I think he looks like the most likely candidate, doesn't he? I think Carrick looks like the most likely to come in, unless Nagelsmann is the other option I'd see at the moment. Apparently, I don't think Luis Enrique signed his contract, but that seems very unrealistic. So I think my best guess would be Carrick as manager. And just say JDC saying our fans are ready to give 80 million for Baleba. I don't think I don't think Manchester United fans that I know want to spend that sort of money. I think Manchester United fans are looking at better options. If you went back to last summer, we looked at the situation. The situation was different last summer because there felt like there was fewer options. It didn't feel like there was as many people to choose from. Whereas this time, I think there's loads and loads of options, like loads of options. Welcome to the chat, Jeff. Good to see you, Jeff. Says there are say so many good CDM options around the world. I think there is literally, for me, it feels like a buyer's market for Manchester United. I think there's probably at least 10 players that would love to join Manchester United. And if we try to sign them, I think we can get them all for less than 60 million. Like you can buy, I think there's loads of players, and I keep mentioning like four or five of them that United can go for that sort of price. I say the squad ratio rules in the Premier League, but I think if you look at this, the ratio in the Premier League is about 85. Is it 0.85, 0.8? But if you're playing Champions League football, you actually have to meet stricter targets regarding financial running of your club as well. So you can't spend as much money on player salaries and player that sort of thing if your club is in Champions League football or any European competition as well. This is like a UEFA rule. So financially, it might be actually good for it might be actually quite good for teams like Newcastle to not be in the Champions League because they can spend loads more than they would otherwise be able to do because their turnover is not very high. So it's quite difficult. Yoli says we will know who we get as manager early June, which is I think maybe as soon as Manchester United finish the season, I think this is the first thing to sort out. And what it might be is that as soon as Manchester United pick up some more points and get Champions League football, I think when they get Champions League football confirmed, then they can use that to make a judgment of whether they feel like Manchester United will actually decide to stick with Carrick, or whether that's going to be something to look at Nagelsmann and then bring him in. And one thing I did see when people were talking recently, I would say lots of yeah, well, I would say with this one that everyone's entitled to their opinion. If you think that Belieber is a bad option, then you're welcome to that opinion. I think I think most people would say their opinion on a lot of transfers depends on what the price is going to be. But if you said Belieber is available for 40 million, I'm very invested in that deal. I think 40 million, you're getting a very good price. If you push the price up to 70 to 80, then it becomes less favourable. So I think there's middle ground there of like maybe it's probably about 60 is probably I think is the cheapest price Man United could get. I think if we got 50, we'd get a good deal. But I think that might be the sort of price. Maybe 50 plus add-ons, would that be enough? But Brighton are a greedy club, so Brighton are possibly going to be missing out if they don't cooperate. That's my view. I don't know whether Man United decide they think he's worth a little bit more, which might be the case. I think that's going to be partly one of the issues here. that United's valuation will be kind of they know how much they're prepared to pay. They know what the budget is. We don't know what the budget is. So if Manchester United were going to spend £250 million, say this summer, we'd look at it and say 70 for Believe is too much. If Manchester United seriously actually have the budget of maybe, I don't know, maybe like 300 million, maybe they see that's actually going to be, this kind of fits into what they're trying to do. So again, we don't know the full budget. We're just assuming of how much, United usually spend about 200, 250. They could potentially spend more this year because Champions League money, the financial rules benefit that, and also the player sales. So there's multiple reasons why we could spend more. I just think that we're all, I mean, most of us think that we won't spend that much because of the owners. Historically, they haven't done that sort of thing. And yeah, if people are abusing you, then that's out of order. But this channel, people will, moderators will make sure that sort of thing does not happen as well. But you're right with that one, Jim. And Mark saying Omar and and Jason were given the roles and have experience since joining the club. They have been promoted into positions they have no experience in, and say, yeah, maybe that's one of the reasons as well. But also, how much say do they have, and how much is it? One of the things that's frustrating is I know we got like Ineos is used as a word to describe like everything, but then what you've got here is individuals and they're making decisions, but they still have to go through the glazes, don't they? They still have to go through the glazes. And maybe in terms of this one, if Manchester United didn't go for Baleba and say as a first option, because it looks like Baleba is going to be one of the ones that, yeah, I'm trying to think, is there of any other midfield targets actually said they want to join Manchester United, or is Baleba the only one? Because if Baleba's the only one, is this going to be potentially the first deal Man United do? And if it wasn't, what would you prefer to be the first deal? Because I said actually quite recently that when there was a story about Alex Scott, so I'll just put this story up for people who didn't see this a couple of days ago, is that Manchester United apparently were going to be looking to submit an official bid for Alex Scott. And as soon as that happens, yeah, we'll be all over that. That'll be big news. But they're looking potentially for Alex Scott as being a £50 million deal. Is that something where Manchester United are actually looking to get a second player to agree to join Man United? Because at the moment, Baleba's the only person I know that has an agreement with Manchester United, has terms agreed. That's still valid for this summer. So United know how much Baleba's going to want salary wise. That's agreed. Baleba wants Manchester United. That seems to be agreed. So this is why this would be the most progressed deal so far. But would it be good for Man United to then pivot and go, let's go for someone different? And in that case, who would you go for? That's my question. Slice of SIB says there's no way Belieber is still 70 million. Now, this is Brighton's valuation though, but again, take it with a pinch of salt because Brighton valuing their player at 70 million is the same as Leipzig putting a €100 million price tag on Diomande. It doesn't mean someone's going to buy him. It doesn't mean like no having like release clauses of like 75 or whatever it is for Hjulmand doesn't mean he's going to cost that much. So at the moment, I think it's just a I think it's just Brighton trying to push the price up. The same way as like Newcastle would say Tonali's going to cost 100 million. He might not cost 100 million because there's better options out there. Or there's other options out there that you could go for instead. But Slice SB saying no one will pay 70 million for Baleba. I don't think I don't think they will. I don't think they will cost that much money. Solly says this time next year people will be happy with Baleba. Say this is a misconception we all got wrong. That he down tools was carrying an injury. For the record, you say you appreciate the German Wonder guy too. That's going to be what Angela Stiller. So yeah, interesting. I think one thing is that there's going to be loads and loads of different opinions. I honestly can't remember what people were saying last year, but I think when you're looking at it, there's going to be lots of different thoughts about this. That no one's going to guess 100% like if he's going to be a success or whether he's going to be. I mean, if Man United signed, say, those players, like Alex Scott, João Gomez, Baleba, Wharton, Angela Stiller. If we got three of those players, then if we got three of those players, no one can guarantee who's going to be in the first team either. So it's difficult to see. Like, would Belieber definitely be a first team player? Would Maney still keep his spot? It's tricky, isn't it? It's difficult. So Kate Cadet says Belieber is a 50 million player. Let's have a look at this one. 40 max. That there's no way we get a midfield player for 40 million. That 40 at the moment. To put it into context, I would suggest that if you look at some of if you look at some of the players that play well in the championship, they're starting to cost 30 million plus. Like some of those players are starting to cost 30, 35 million championship players. So when you're looking at Premier League, as a minimum, I think you got 30, like for players that have barely played, they're probably getting 30, 35 at least. So I think when you've actually looked at someone that's been better than that, I think it's difficult to get the way that money's gone up in football. Championship players are now costing 30 to 40 million, like the best ones. And this is kind of what we're seeing. How much did Trafford cost in the end? I mean, he was a goalkeeper in the championship. He was not particularly cheap considering we got Lamans for 18. I would say United Dice says 50 million believer, but no more. No, Brighton are doing exactly what other clubs have done in the past. They push the price up. They're quite expensive, but I do get the feeling that it doesn't matter what Brighton say. Man United need to act. If we want to get a cheaper price for, if we want to get a cheaper price, if Belieber was 50 million, would people be happy? Because so Trafford was 27. So you're looking at goalkeepers in the Championship cost about 30 million. That's a goalkeeper, and midfield players are going to cost a bit more. Midfield players in the Championship might be costing 30, 35 at the moment. And if you move into the Premier League, João Gomez might be cheap because Wolves got relegated, but he might end up still costing more than people think. If you're looking at Fernandez at West Ham, well, they won yesterday, so a little bit closer to staying in the Premier League, but difficult games coming up. If West Ham stay in the Premier League, he's 70 million pounds. If they get relegated, I think there's a clause that he might be available for 34. So Fernandez would be a bargain if West Ham got relegated. So when you're looking at all these deals and you're looking at the transfers out there, some of the things that might change is at the moment, Brighton aren't going to get relegated. But if West Ham get relegated, suddenly there's a top quality player available that might be half the price of Belieber. So, and also, if Nottingham Forest suddenly fall apart a little bit and miss out on European football, maybe that impacts things. So it is quite difficult to guess what the best option is because some of these teams have got a lot to play for. If West Ham get relegated, say that's why we want West Ham to get relegated. Yeah, if West Ham get relegated, they've got some quality players there that will be wanted by the clubs. And there will be a bit of a bidding war possibly, or there will be a battle to try and get Fernandez because 34 million pounds will be ridiculously cheap. So there are a few players at West Ham that will be in high demand, and maybe that's why that if West Ham had got relegated a month ago, which isn't the case because they're going to fight to the very end, there would have probably been a bit of a bidding war, a bit of a battle to try and get this player. But at the moment, Baleba is essentially, yeah. I did a stream a few days ago saying that Baleba, say, Matheus Fernandez is actually Paris Saint-Germain are interested as well, so it is pretty tricky. Solly says Baleba is worth 70 million, but try to get him for less. So this guy at his best will destroy any midfield. And see, yeah, if that's your view, stick to your view because people are going to have different opinions. I mean, at the moment, I've seen the very highs of Belieber hype a year ago, where people would pay 100 million plus. I think now we're seeing people push the price down to about 50 million. But in reality, like Belieber's probably another. If he has a good season, I still think that he's a decent player. Whether I don't think he's the best option, but he's still a decent player and he still would be one player. I mean, we would sign three midfield players, so we wouldn't just have Baleba. We'd have competition for Baleba as well. If you look at this, we had like Toby Collier and Agate were options last season. We're gonna be buying players levels above that, aren't we? Absolute levels. Slices of SIB saying that Baleba is 60 million maximum. I mean, the thing is, 60 million pounds, then maybe that's what he costs. So the fact Brighton wants 70 doesn't mean he's going to cost 70. That's my point. That because Brighton say they want 70 because he's important to their club, it doesn't mean that Manchester United are going to pay that. That's all I'd say. Welcome, Niall, to chat. You're saying pay the fee, good player. So at the moment, let's have a quick look at the poll. So at the moment, I've got a poll running saying, should Manchester United pay, say, 70 million pounds for Baleba? I mean, a few days ago, we talked about Baleba, and I think 60 million pounds was the price people wanted to pay. But I did say that the fact Brighton want to have that sort of price, just because Brighton say we want 70 doesn't mean Man United pay it. 100% is might be. I'm really hope. I keep saying this loads and loads of times because I really want it to happen. But I think Manchester United should make an offer for Alex Scott or get Angela Stiller done. Like just get one of those. Just get one of those players. Maybe also and saying let me just go through the comments because a few Fernandez comments as well. The comments are moving quite quickly. And you're saying you'd rather pay 50 million for Fernandez than 70 for Baleba, and he's not a 70 million pound player. 50 to 60 is, I think 50, I think 55 to 60 feels a bit like the level, but I think that might be determined possibly by the price of Alex Scott, possibly by the price of a couple of other players as well. But maybe what we could look at is if you're looking at Manchester United's transfers this summer, maybe how. I'm assuming that we're going to try and get Believe at some point. I'm assuming an offer is going to go in, and it would be genuinely interesting to see two things. One is going to be how much would we actually end up paying for Belieber, considering all this conversation today, all the conversation over the last sort of 9 months? How much will we actually end up paying for him? Also, where would he stand in terms of the midfield signings? Would it be near the top end of the price? Would it be like kind of mid range? Or will we be seeing other midfielders come in that cost more than Belieber? So, and also other players we buy for the club, if we go for a left winger, where does Belieber's price fit in with other options, other deals we're doing? So if Belieber's like the top, the most expensive signing, then I think most people will be a bit concerned. But if he ends up being about roughly similar to what we're paying for other players, I think maybe people will be looking at it going, okay, you have to pay a certain amount to get certain players. But what I'm saying is that at the moment, it's quite difficult to sort of see if this is a good deal or not. And so you're not the first person to say this, Den, and you might not be the last person to say this, but you're saying that what happens if Madrid come after him? So if Madrid come after him, they're going to have, well, potentially too many will still be there, so maybe we'll get too many at that point. But no, at this point in time, if Real Madrid comes, will it down tools on us? Says Dan. Then I suppose if you feel like he down tools on Brighton because they didn't sell him to Manchester United, then I guess the same would apply in the same situation. It's a little bit like saying if um if Anthony Gordon's like forcing his way out of Newcastle, would he do the same at Manchester United? Like if players are, I think players don't change personalities, do they? So if you see players that are forcing their way out of clubs and causing issues, causing problems, they're probably going to do that to your club if they did that to previous clubs. And if they down tools because they want to force a move or whatever reason, then they probably would have the same situation. But we'll have to see. Yali says that you really like the idea of Mainu and Belieber in the midfield. I think this one is yeah, it's comparing profiles, isn't it? That this is why Man United initially looked at Belieber because of the speed he had and because of some of the things he can do, which maybe complement Code Mainu. And this is going to be applicable, like probably for any signing as well. That more than likely there's going to be a lot of games next season where the player that comes in might be playing alongside Mainu. So would it be like too many, like anchoring the defence, so the defensive side of midfield? Would that mean that we see Mainu further forward? I think with Baleba and Anderson, they bring loads of energy to the club. Maybe Wharton would be someone that's not particularly pacey, but then maybe he was being seen as somewhat similar to Mainu. Not my view, but that was the view of the club. That I think they were seeing Wharton as a bit too similar to Mainu, and I think what they're looking at is someone more athletic, and they do see Belieber as being that sort of player as well. saying I think this one's subjective, isn't it? Everyone's gonna have a different things. I'd say Baleba's the only credible link so far, says Malps. I seriously think they don't know who else to get. I would say potentially I think Christopher Vivell is really pushing to get a couple of things done. One is like Nagelsmann is the link that Vivell push, but I think Vivell's actually genuinely looking at trying to talk Manchester United into actually signing Angela Stiller. So I think that there's credible links with a few players, and there's definitely more links than this. So I think that Baleba's the one that is a hangover from last season. Like we agreed terms with Baleba last season, so this is going to be from so. Um, Alex has a different view. Says, "Who cares if we sign Baleba?" Let me put that comment back up. Who cares if we sign Baleba for 60, then in a few years for 90? If United bought like a few midfield players, it probably wouldn't be a problem, would it? We'd probably be actually that's fine. And saying, yeah, it's going to be quite nice to talk about football again, isn't it? The other news I saw this morning was talking about this coaching and the progression of Aiden Heaven. So there is going to be who starts tomorrow. I think Maguire and Heaven start tomorrow. I think that makes most sense. But yeah, do you worry if we sign Belieber, then he downs tools and we sell him for 90? Yeah, is that a significant problem? Like if he, I think with this one, if Belieber comes to United and then Real Madrid want him, isn't that an indication that he's actually worked out really well at the club? So it is a bit tricky. But if United sign three midfield players, then in a couple of years' time or a few years' time, you'd imagine that Manchester United would have actually got another player in at that time. So this is about the next few years, isn't it? And if you sign Joe Gomez or Belieber or I'm trying to think, or Wharton or Angela Stiller, there's always a chance that Real Madrid might want to buy one of those players at some point. I mean, it's probably not a bad thing, is it? If Real Madrid want to buy your players, and they were looking at, I think they're looking at Konate at Liverpool, they're looking at Rodri at Man City. It's probably an indication that at least you've actually bought decent players. So that's one thing which I think, fair enough, is actually worth considering. I don't think United are actually buying these players to try and sell. I think that's it. I'd say our targets. I think we did know. I think we do. I think we know I think as fans we kind of roughly know our targets. There's just a lot of them, isn't there? So you think they chased too? You think we chased too many this window? Then he signs to Madrid, and then they run to Baleba. And I hope you're wrong because that would be something which that's probably the one thing we don't want to happen, isn't it? The one thing we don't want to happen is try and sign a player initially that is unrealistic or difficult. That's why I said that there's easy deals to do out there. It's almost like you have to actually do something. Big up to you, Jeff. It's almost like we have to get an easy deal done first to start with. Belieber's what? Belieber's 20. Is Belieber 22? So if we start 24, I suppose 25. Maybe. I'm saying emphasis on Belieber had an injury missed preseason, then had his minutes managed throughout the season. Decent game versus Chelsea. I'm not sure what injury he had either. I'm not sure. I think at the moment, Solly though, he might be. I think people are looking at this and thinking that it's not that he's terrible. I think people just don't like the idea of spending big money on a player that's not in particularly great form. I can see that point of view as well. I think most Man United fans are probably mindful that we probably need to get three midfield players signed and it's almost like if we get Baleba, I think people are then going, right, if we get Baleba, are we going to miss out on potentially, is it going to be then too expensive to sign Tonali? Is it going to be more difficult to try and get, say, is too many going to be unrealistic? Are we going to be ending up with players that we're disappointed in? I think that's what people think. That everybody's thinking that we need to get the best possible player in, and I think that people use the term best in class, etc. I think people are genuinely concerned that we might not be getting players in that mean we can compete with Manchester City. So I think that's the aim. The aim next season has got to be Manchester United have to be competitive in the Premier League, have to have that. We have to have as good options as we had in attack last season. So it is difficult because I think if you get Baleba, people think, right, if we get Baleba, but City get Anderson, then there's going to be a direct comparison between Anderson and Baleba. And it's the same as if, like, if Arsenal got Tonali, someone mentioned that this morning. I don't know if Tonali is still linked to Arsenal, but if Arsenal got Tonali, people would then go, right, right, have Arsenal bought a better player than us? Have City bought a better player than us? If so, how are we going to be catching these teams up? So it feels like whatever happens, I think like forget Belieber for a second. I think whatever happens, people are going to be saying to catch up with Manchester City, to catch Liverpool and Arsenal, we need to buy better players than they are buying. That's what I think people are looking at. So if you think that Belieber's not as good as Anderson or Tonali, then I think you're going to find him disappointing. That's what I'm thinking. But what I would say was with United, Belieber playing for Manchester United, that he might fit in better than someone like, say, Tonali going to Arsenal. And like, what improvement is Tonali going to go to make to Arsenal? Arsenal already have their midfield set up. You could say that he's probably a better player than like Marino, but they've already got Declan Rice. They've already got Odegaard. So is Tonali going to suddenly make the difference there? I don't know. I think what he's doing, that Declan Rice might do something similar. But I think Believer would make a big difference for Man United. I think the midfield signings for Manchester United make a bigger difference for United than midfield signings going to Arsenal, Chelsea, City, who already have actually quite good players in that position. I'd say that yeah, this is one worth say a good point there is that there's multiple teams we're looking at that you got Brighton in the mix. I mean, let's hope Brighton drops some points then, because that's probably an issue. It's the same way as that like West Ham get relegated if Forest get European football. So unfortunately, all the players we're looking at, what happens if what happens if Bournemouth get European football as well? That might be tricky. At the moment in time, I suppose it's like quite close, isn't it? Are they level on points with Bournemouth? So I think that maybe you'd look at Bournemouth as saying they've been an informed team, but no, it could be more difficult than saying yeah, but no, Jarvis is saying if Brighton qualify for Europa, maybe they'd be looking at 75 million. I mean, if they qualify, there's still like 4 or 5 games to go. If Baleba's actually an important player in getting them that, then yeah, I think it could change things, couldn't it? It could change things a little bit. One other thing I would say is that at this point in time, Brighton, I feel that they've got replacements lined up. I think they want to cash in on Baleba, and maybe they'd actually like to try and sign a few players for this one. But I don't see other clubs linked to Baleba. That if Manchester United don't like pull out the deal, I don't think anyone else is going to buy him. And I still think that Brighton want to sell him because they want to get the money and then want to reinvest it. So I think Brighton they don't really need to sell him, but I think they would like to sell him because they've got players lined up already. They think is going to be a good option. And maybe, for 65, 70 million, they might be able to buy a few players to replace him. So say City can buy different context though, didn't it? Like if Man United had bought Turkey, he'd have cost that money, but they're different players. And Turkey was didn't had a bit of a release clause, but I think Turkey was one that was always going to be a cheaper deal. Like it's always going to be cheaper just because of the situation and where he was at a club. So yeah, if Man United were trying to buy him, if Man City were trying to buy Baleba, he would probably still cost the same amount of money, so it wouldn't be a problem. I'm lucky saying 68 million we get the deal done. That's pretty close to 70, isn't it? I was thinking like for United, if we look at structuring, yeah, if we look at structuring the deal for Baleba, then maybe it would be like 60 plus add-ons. Maybe it'd be something like that. Or could you do 55 plus add-ons? I think you could do something like that. And Lucky Singh saying you're favouring Premier League proven players as well. The fee for too many is apparently supposed to be about 70 million pounds, and with too many because that's how they paid about eight. I think they paid 85 million euros, so about 70 million pounds. So Manchester City they just want to get the same price. So Real Madrid want to get the same money for too many as they paid for him, but too many is on 200 base salary, 50k Champions League bonus. It's about 275 all in all. So he would be a very expensive. Like the difference between signing, if you think about it, the difference between signing too many in Baleba or too many in Tonali, the price might be similar transfer fee wise, but the salary for too many would be incredibly high. We're looking at Casemiro type salary potentially. So if you look at how much money Real Madrid paid too many, if Manchester United were going to get too many, it would be like a it would be like almost like a like for like Casemiro replacement in contract as well as kind of player attributes. So it would be the money we save from Casemiro would almost like you'd expect 80% of it at least to go too many. He would be getting about 300k a week, I'd imagine, considering like with Champions League bonuses and all that sort of thing factored in, you would be expecting him to be on that sort of contract. So it would probably be the biggest contract at the club, apart from Bruno Fernandes, if too many came in. But I think considering the experience and the level of the player, then that's just what you'd have to pay. Like no one else would, no other club would sign too many and be able to get him on a significantly reduced contract. That's kind of the deal. So salary wise, all the players we're linked to, too many is going to be the most expensive. I think Tonali would be maybe the second most expensive. So that's probably that's what you would see in terms of salaries. Baleba would probably be one of the cheapest signings. So big up to you, Kate. Thanks for tuning in. So if you're looking at trying to sign Carlos Baleba, he was rumored to be on like 12.5k at Brighton. I think it's probably closer to 70 now. So, but I think he's still, Baleba's probably on the lowest salary of players we're looking at. Like Anderson's on 100k a week already. So in terms of like getting deals done, Baleba would be probably the only player I think we can get out of say Anderson, Tonali. They're going to want 200k plus. Whereas Baleba would be a salary demand. Maybe it's going to be lower. It might be in the Co-Mania region. So if you factor in the whole cost, like the transfer fee is going to be probably it's not going to be cheap for Baleba, but its salary demand would mean that it's like a bit lower as well. So overall, if you're considering the financial implication of these deals, I think too many might be the most expensive deal we can do. Probably Tonali similar as well. That's what you have to look in terms of impact of the whole price as well. So it's not just the transfer fee; it's also how much money you can have to spend around that one as well. Now, it's good to see like there's like healthy debate as well. There's a lot of views, pluses and minuses, and said, and we could instead of paying full 70, maybe bid a little bit lower in this one. Also, I did say about Agate potentially. Well, Agate's confirmed is going to be out the door as well. So if you're looking at Agate, I was going to guess how much Agate would bring in, but it's confirmed that Agate's leaving. I'm not sure exactly his destination, and there might be a few clubs interested. Particularly, he would be effective in a different league. The Premier League is just not the right place for Agate. I think Agate internationally puts in good performances. I think if you go to different leagues, he might be a very effective player. Could be about there could be about 30, 35 million, in which case, yeah, that pays for quite a lot, doesn't it? Quite pays for quite a lot. Um, Welcome to Luke in the chat. Um, People that just joined as well, this is kind of an open debate regarding midfield options as well. So if you feel there's like a few options you think are like no-brainers, then get them in. I think João Gomez, Angela Stiller, probably Alex Scott feel like they're the sort of deals where you're going to get almost like a very good deal. But don't forget, like the players leaving does mean there's a lot more to spend this summer. So that could be, Agate leaving is almost like João Gomez money, if you think about it. It's almost that sort of thing. I'd say lots of people are saying this. I'd say a combination of two things, Scott. One is going to be form. One is going to be, I think that Man United have agreed terms with Baleba. Baleba wants to join Manchester United. I think other teams are just not going to be. There's no point, is there? That unless you're Manchester City and they've got other targets, which other teams would be looking to get Baleba? Like I can't think of other teams that are actually looking at midfielders that would go right. We'll get Baleba and think they can stop him going to Manchester United. So I don't think there's other teams interested because of that reason. I'll be at you, Luke. Are you in South Africa? Is that what SA stands for? But good to see you. Um, so Xerxes could be like say going for like about 29 million as well. So I saw Xerxes was priced at about 35 million euros. I think there's still teams interested in him. So if you think about that between those two players, Xerxes and and Agate, that brings in a player on its own as well, doesn't it? So say Tottenham versus Joe Gomez. So Joe Gomez was the best midfielder. Now people have been actually okay. No worries. Now people have actually been quite happy with João Gomez recently. I know Wolves are terrible, but this is why when you watch the team, then yeah, Wolves have caused problems. Like Wolves equalised against Arsenal, didn't they? So Wolves could be derailing Arsenal's title challenge. So they've got some good players there. What's interesting is we could probably pick out teams that are getting relegated in the Premier League and find players that would fit our team. I think João Gomez is the one at the moment left, and actually Mane, their striker, who I think he had a couple of good chances. He's also on the list as well as potential backup striker. Quite young, I think he's about 19, but again, potentially not the worst deal as well. People that just click the like as well, don't forget to smash the like as well. If you and don't forget to post some comments and vote. This is like supposed to be very interactive. It has been pretty interactive today. I'm actually quite glad there's been a few positives for believe at that price point as well as some negatives. So there has been like room for discussion. I mean, so Dice says you're disappointed with how we developed Xerxes. No, I don't know what's happened with like this one. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's a combination of the way we're playing and like who would you take out of the team to put in Xerxes? If you're playing 4-2-3-1, like who'd you take out of the team? It's very difficult to see. Like if you're looking to link attack to forwards, like Bruno Fernandes, like say if Bruno Fernandes is the person that's there, then I don't know. I think Xerxes is one of these players that would look much better in a different team. So I don't think it really fits what Man United's. I don't think what I don't understand why Xerxes was bought because I don't think he fits our team. I don't know what position he would be put in. So there's nothing wrong with Xerxes as a football player. I just it doesn't make any sense with regarding what Manchester United are trying to do. Um, so Alex says I still want Buwadi as rotation, the Euro of midfielders. Though if anyone has a compilation of Yoro, then a sort of compilation of Buari, I need to find one because I did post one in the Discord, probably I found one like a year ago, which was really good, and it's kind of a good illustration of what Buari's good at. I was hoping to try and find it again, but no, he's one that I think would be very good. If you sign Buari, then I think you would definitely be seeing like someone. You'd have a clear hierarchy in terms of midfield, wouldn't you? Where you'd look at Brady as coming in to be a rotation option, I think, but also a good option, also a good defensive option to bring on. If the game's tight, like Brady's incredibly good at tackling. If you're looking at to try and bring on someone to short midfield, I think Brady's a good option. But it does give us a variety of players. If Baleba got signed, does Baleba walk into the first team, or is Baleba going to be one of those players that would also be maybe like a rotation option as well? It's generally quite difficult. And so you want players that are hungry to play, maybe like say like Mathis Cunha, like Cunha could play a few different positions, like a few different positions, and he would be quite a good option. Yeah, if we bought Buwadi though, I don't think we got the scope to buy him and loan him back. That he's still only 18. I don't know whether maybe actually I think with Buwadi that's the sort of deal that Chelsea would do. They'd buy him, loan him back. I think at this point in time, I don't think Man United can do that. We need players for the first team and for the bench to make sure we've got enough options going into next season. So I don't think we can do any of the sort of buying and loaning out at that sort of price because I think Buwadi would start costing. Is he like over 35, 40 million now? So he's starting to edge up to being like quite expensive. So it would be good option. So if we sell Agati for 35 million, you see Carlos Baleba coming in at just under 70 and saying that would somewhat balance the books a little bit. I think so. I think that's not a bad option as well. So are you talking about if you're talking about this must be about Baleba, is it? So if United look to buy him, there must be some confidence in his recovery. And say it'd have to pass his medical, obviously. It could just be say sensible. If you're talking about Belieber, maybe is it Belieber you're talking about, saying that there would be some have to be a good medical. But I think with Belieber that this reminds me a bit of like some players that have lost form in the past. I think United still see what's Belieber's attributes, and I think when you look at this and think right, if you're looking at Brighton playing this season, has Belieber been their worst player? So I don't think he's been their worst player, but he's certainly going to be the most scrutinised player. And the question would be, if you take Belieber out of Brighton and put him into a different club, and you have a different environment. We have, we've worked quite well. Coaches that work well with Aiden Heaven, you can see the progression he's making. Coaches could work with Belieber. Like Brighton, effectively, they develop a player to a certain level, then they look to sell them quite quickly. So players are usually at Brighton for a couple of seasons, then they cash in and sell them. With United, it's more of a long-term plan. So do they see the attributes Belieber's got as going to be good long-term attributes they can work with? And if this player hits the level he reached a year ago when he's only like 2021, could it be, think you have to be very careful about this sort of issue as well, that if there is like underlying medical issues, then it's going to be uh, particularly difficult. So, so I believe was made to be more defensive this season. I'm arguing it could be just good management of his knee, which knee injuries that make me, because I think we believe it to be with Baleba to be a 70 million pound plus player, I think Baleba needs to be able to play the way he did a couple of years ago. If he can't do that because of his knee, it's a bit of a question mark, isn't it? I mean, it is difficult. It is a difficult situation. Like there's not a right and wrong answer. You have to do a medical. Say if Baleba's able to push himself like he did 2 years ago and play to that level in the future, then I can see that Man United are very happy with this one. But yeah, it's tricky. And so you think I'm happy and content with Baleba? I think there's definitely, from a Manchester United perspective, it seems that we're going to be looking to try and buy this player. So I've kind of accepted it that Man United are going to buy the player. The question I've got really is, I don't know what the reason is for Baleba's drop off this season. If it is injury and it's management of injuries, I'm just concerned that it's going to be a problem in a year's time. So if Man United sign Baleba and then in September we get he gets injured and misses like months, and then we have are we going to be effectively wasting money? That's what I want to try and avoid. If there is a significant injury issue with Carlos Baleba, it makes me worried that he's not going to. I think he's a good player, but I do worry that what's the reason why he hasn't been so good this season? What's the reason why he's only playing an hour? If it's an injury issue, then should Brighton have done some different? No, should have done something differently. A good point from Stephanie actually saying Baleba featured in Cameroon's AFCON campaign. Maybe Mbeumo has a bit more information on this one. It might be that I'm sure Mbeumo will know him well, and this has got to be some sort. This has got to be a little. I know it's not necessarily going to be. No, Mbeumo's not going to go to Jim and say, "Look, definitely get him. He's the best option." But no, I think Mbeumo would, if there was an issue and Mbeumo knew about it, that you would know about this playing for with teammates. You would know if there's some knocks or some injury or they're playing within themselves. So no, that's a good option with this one. So you could potentially find out from that one. As they probably always see lots of Brighton players already injured, so they manage it well, unlike us. It's sensible, isn't it? With that one, I think with United they do. Yeah, I think with knee injuries, it depends on what the injury is, that and whether it's something that can be reoccurring. It's a bit like Lissandro Martinez. That you have a player once you've got a knee injury, is it going to be more likely to get a recurrence of that same injury, or is it something that they can work through? Because it does make me a bit concerned that if Carlos Baliba's got a knee injury and you're looking at Champions League football, Premier League campaign next season, he's going to have to play with this sort of intensity that we're expecting to try and play a lot better. Like, and if you've got Mainu with Baleba can't really be. He's got to be. It's a bit like Luke Shaw coming back from injury. It takes a bit of time, maybe that's the case. Maybe it is just a bit caution, and then maybe we're going to see the best of Baleba next season. I mean, if we got Baleba this season for 60, 65, 70, and then he kicks on next season, it's going to seem like a good deal. But it feels a bit like a 70 million pound deal that could go either way. Like it could be a 45 million pound player, could be an 80 million pound player. It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? But that's why I thought I'd put the poll in the comments to say like, would it be a good option to try and sign him? What would be like just for this one? What would be your first signing though? Let's say we need to sort out the medical side, rehabilitation, and say vote is roughly two-thirds don't want believe it at 70 million pounds. It makes me think: is there scope for a different poll? Or what I'll do, this might be. I'm just trying to think. Based on today, this might be the one stream, and then there will be the calling show tonight at 7 p.m. So maybe I'll go a bit longer with this one, and we'll do every. So if people got questions on other midfielders, and feel free to get them in. I think regarding Belieber, I don't think people are going to be in agreement on this. But as of everything Manchester United, there's almost like too much choice, isn't there? It feels a bit like we've walked into like a record store without any idea of what sort of music we like, and we're just looking at all the different options, and we're just going to have to pick three and get home, and hopefully that we've chosen wisely. But Stephanie says I'd get João Gomez in first. Yeah, how much would you be? Like, how much would João Gomez actually cost? Like people think 35, but yeah, John, welcome to chat. John, 50 million pound maximum for you. So 50 million pounds for you. Would you? I think add-ons might be a factor. And Yali says, I'll take Baleba for 55 plus 15. So that's 70 in total. I say, what is Champions League qualification going to be? That's kind of a similar deal to, actually, in the end, that ends up being a bit cheaper than Baleba. So a bit cheaper than Mbeumo. Yeah, I was thinking this one. If they want 70 million, maybe the deal could be structured in that way that if Believer plays 50 games for Manchester United, then you get extra money. If Man United qualify for the Champions League next season, you get that as well. So maybe you could do that deal where there's significant add-ons. I don't know whether this would be. I remember when we had a discussion with Mbeumo with Brentford, it looked like they wanted the add-ons to be specific to the player performance, whereas United did want some that were like Champions League qualification, so player performance related. Which I think with player like Baleba, instead of like goals and assists is something you can have from Buemo and attacking players. But I think with Baleba, if we're worried about his injury issues, then you could say, right, if you play 50 games, we're going to give you an extra 5 million. If we qualify for the Champions League, an extra 5 million, and maybe there's like an extra five for something else as well. So you could look at this one, and you could say like if 55 is guaranteed. I think honestly, maybe like 60 plus 10 might be something that ends up being if we're looking at 70 in total. I mean, 70 is not outrageous considering potentially Anderson Tonali could be 100 million plus. So it could be like it feels like Gomez feels like a cheap deal, but Gomez and Angela Stiller, there's no actually no there's no guarantee that they're actually going to be cheap deals. So they might actually end up costing a bit more than people think. So I don't think there's necessarily going to be really a cheap deal. So we'll see. I don't mind that price actually. I think the add-ons is something that could be there to yeah, if worst case scenario you don't pay quite so much. So maybe that's the way of doing it. So if you want, I do like beast mode. So you're saying Belieber, Angela Stiller plus Tchouaméni, obviously got Code Menu there as well. That's some like what's the price there? 70 for Tchouaméni, probably that's still you still get those for comfortably under 200 million. So I think that's true as well. Let's see. Sorry, are you talking about Belieber you think is a one-off player? If it is, just to clarify, Lumen says people blaming Believer for downing tools. Tonali yesterday against Arsenal was playing casually. Bruno Guimaraes as well. So I would say that yeah, Newcastle. People do say that. I would say that because we're talking about Believer today. People will be talking about Believer, but I think with this one that people say the same thing about Tonali. If we're talking about Tonali, people will say the same thing there. So people will say. I think people do say similar things about similar players. It's um it's just the focus today is on Baleba, so people are talking about Baleba. But I think if we did a stream about Tonali, people would be there's definitely people I know that really rate Tonali, say Tonali is worth £100 million, get him in. And there's definitely people that say they're inconsistent, that they think Tonali's inconsistent and they're not happy with how much he would cost as well. And so John says people say we're shifting 13 players this window. Um, I heard that as well. 13 sounds a lot. I'm guessing that you've got to be looking at academy players moving on and loans and think that like the first team isn't very big, so 13 sounds like a huge amount. But yeah, I don't know this one. I'd say with the injury, 50 could be worth pursuing for the club. Would need managed minutes for a further season? Question mark. Possibly. But then you'd imagine with like if Baleba came in with another couple of midfielders, then maybe that would be effectively something that easy enough to do. Like you could manage minutes for a lot of players. You would want to manage minutes for Code Mainu over the whole season to avoid injuries as well at his age. And if too many came in, you'd expect he'd be able to play a lot of minutes. If Tonali the same as well. So, and I think more experienced players would play more minutes as well. So if we got three players in, I think potentially, Belieber can play like one game a week, or you could say Komenu doesn't have to start every single game. If Belieber's playing that, it could be edged in a bit like, it'd be a big upgrade on Ugarte, but again, it might be that he's managed minutes quite effectively over the season, and maybe it's not a problem as well. Jim says, I don't think Belieber will be our first signing. So Brighton would go, yeah. I think the negotiation with Brighton seems like it could be a little bit longer. And still, it could be a bit easier to negotiate unless there's serious interest from Real Madrid. There's always like a link to a different team, isn't there? So I think that it's kind of difficult at the moment. I think financially, like someone like João Gomez would make sense for the first signing. Like João Gomez could be the first signing because he's not very expensive. Remember last year, Man United were looking at trying to get Delap as our first signing. Like he was only 30 million. I'd imagine that potentially Man United might also be looking at trying to get one of the cheaper signings, possibly as a first option. So we'll have to see what happens, but there'll probably be something similar. Probably something we find out quite soon. I say at least we're not trying to get a player from Brentford this time round. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say at the moment, okay, getting a player out of Brentford was quite painful, but getting a player from Brighton might actually be just as difficult. I mean, we will also maybe look at Bournemouth as well, and maybe that's going to be quite tricky. And you'll say in a year, Fernandez will be playing for PSG and we'll regret not buying him. It's possible. If West Ham stay up, though, he would be very expensive. And again, there's no indication that Fernandez would want to go to Manchester United over PSG. So that would be a player decision as well. So I think that you're not alone in thinking that lots of people really rate him as well, and lots of people think he's going to be one of the best options. And Mark says Kobe can't play twice a week. No, I don't think he's necessarily going to have to either. I don't think our players will like Casemiro wouldn't be playing twice a week. I think someone like Tonali could be, too many could be, but Anderson certainly would be fine. I guess like João Gomez would be okay, but I think when you've got a bigger squad, you don't have to have that. You have to look at it and say it's going to be a squad game. I think United need to make sure that they get all players involved over the season. And what will be my priority for next season in all four competitions? I think the priority next season has to be Premier League. Like it should be that fundamentally the priority has to be Premier League. That for a minimum you have to make sure that you finish high enough up the Premier League to qualify for Champions League every single season. But ultimately, that's the benchmark of where we stand next to City, Arsenal, Liverpool. So we need to try and finish as high up the Premier League as possible. If not, try and work our way into some sort of title race over the next couple of years. That has to be the priority. And then beyond that, once you get to in the Champions League, I think the priority in the Champions League is get through the group stage, and then it's a complete lottery, isn't it? Who you end up playing. You could get an elite team in the knockout stage and struggle, or you could get a significant run. Cup competitions are going to be somewhat of a lottery, but I think the Premier League is always going to be priority, and then beyond that, Champions League, and then domestic cups as well. Considering we're hoping to have a bigger squad, then hopefully we can be a bit do a little bit better in the FA Cup, and again, it depends on the draw and the League Cup as well. But I think that the Premier League will be everybody's priority as well. I think so. So Jim would like United to buy someone as soon as the window opens, and a statement of intent. What would you like the first signing to be? Like, if you want a statement signing, does that mean you go for like a big signing straight away? Like, are Man City going to be doing Anderson as their statement signing? Like, should Man United be looking to sign one of the more expensive players as a statement signing? Is Angela Stiller enough as as a first deal, or would Baleba be like a statement signing? Would Joe Gomez be like Joe Gomez is cheaper, but would it be does it have to be an expensive player, or do you think just get someone in quick, get someone in early? Say this season, well, we've got 58 points so far, haven't we? So we'd have to win every game, wouldn't we, to get 70 points? I say 70 points every single season and a cup. Yeah. If we finish like top four next season, got through the group stage of the Champions League, won a domestic cup, you'd look at it and say, okay, that's progress from this season. But genuinely, I think you'd want to get a bit. I'm not saying we could be in a title race, but I think generally you just want to make sure you get as high up the league as possible and close the gap. So it's going to be tricky because we haven't we haven't got the squad to play at all competitions to a high level at the moment. So we need to actually make sure we get the depth in. So I would agree with the FA Cup run if they moved one of the Champions League spots into the FA Cup and Europa League. So yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah. Right now, clubs winning a cup get almost nothing. So maybe they should do that. Maybe it should be if England gets if the English league gets five Champions League positions, I think they get to decide who gets them, and they base it on league form. Maybe the FA Cup should have one. It would be I suppose if the FA Cup had one, there would be some like interesting things over the last sort of 20 years, wouldn't there? You would have teams like I'm just trying to think. You would have teams like Crystal Palace in the Champions League. You'd have had Wigan getting relegated but getting to the Champions League. So, uh, interesting point actually. Maybe how would people feel about that if it wasn't the top five or top four? It was the top sort of three or four positions plus the FA Cup, because that would be bizarre actually. It would change the dynamic a little bit because you'd have to put out you would have to put out your best team in the FA Cup because if there's only three guaranteed Premier League positions and you've got Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Man United. Yeah, it would be quite difficult because if Man United do well in the Premier League, then Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, one of those would miss out, and it would mean that the FA Cup does become. It would probably be very beneficial for the FA Cup. I'm not sure what fans would think regarding that one, but it would be suddenly, yeah, suddenly the FA Cup would be if I suppose if the English FA and the Premier League have different priorities, the English FA would 100% like the FA Cup to be regarded as that importance. But I don't know, could you have something like could you have the fourth place team have a one-off playoff versus the FA Cup winning team to decide who gets Champions League position? So it puts you in the mix, and if you finish top four, you still got a chance. I don't know. It's a weird suggestion, but it could mean you have you could almost like create a new competition where you have a Champions League playoff game between that. But say if City beat Leeds, they get imagine like Chelsea fans that they dropped down to the Europa League after all they've spent and winning the Club World Cup. Absolutely hilarious. And welcome niche fan to the chat as well. Good to see you getting involved. So, so yeah, I don't think our first signing needs to be expensive, but it kind of needs to be quick, doesn't it? I think that's what people are thinking. So I think that in terms of that one, it doesn't need to be expensive, does it? I think a statement signing, if if the transfer window opened and Manchester United announced Baleba on day one, then forget the player. I would be genuinely impressed that Man United got a deal done quite quickly. So I think that there's definitely a fan expectation that we need to get deals done quickly, and we need to get deals done hopefully before the World Cup happens because that could push up some prices. And again, Belieber at £70 million or £60 million might seem expensive, but then if we fast forward to the end of August and the transfer window closes, it might actually be seen as not a bad purchase because sometimes transfers can go crazy. What if Anderson genuinely goes for 100+ million or even like 120 that they were talking about at Forest? I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but it might happen if Forest get European football and go right. We're going to be forcing this up. So yeah, top four focused, Champions League run, quarter final. This one exactly. Jason, welcome to the chat. Says 50 million plus installments of 5 million all round to get this done. So as a base price, so it could be that I guess how the deal's going to be structured. Like I think United have got the money. Like if the deal's structured in a sensible manner, I think that could be fine. But maybe £70 million sounds a lot. But if you factor in add-ons that can maybe make it less risky, I think it could be sensible. Like to people, would people be happy with that if the price was a little bit lower, but or add-ons were significant? I think that would be not a bad way of getting not a bad way of bridging the gap between what people want and what people think is going to be absolutely fair. Um, you're saying, do you think it would be? Is Anderson just too expensive? Like you're saying, why should you burn money on Elliot Anderson and say that would be insanity? Let's say yeah, Elliot Anderson is good, but is it Elliot Anderson potentially too expensive as well? Mark says same day window opens, we should sign a player. Deals are made behind the scenes. Yeah, I was thinking that one. If you're looking at this one, there's no reason why we can't get a deal done now. It could be that. Do you remember with the story about João Gomez that Leeds were looking to make an offer and Atletico looking to make an offer? And where do you rate João Gomez in the window? Because I think João Gomez is potentially one of the like bargains possibly. I think he could be a very cheap signing, could be a good option, and I think Man United could certainly do worse than him. I think they could look at him as being a potentially good option. I do still quite like Alex Scott as a player that I think is going to be potentially able to hit a higher level as well. I think that he's different to Belieber, and I don't think Alex Scott should cost more than Belieber does. Sally, welcome to chat. Sally says Lucky Singh wants Leeds to win the FA Cup. Let me check that. I don't think any Man United fan wants Leeds to win the FA Cup. I don't think that would be. I don't think that was put. I must have missed that one if that's the case. I mean, it is kind of difficult, isn't it? I think when Leeds are playing teams you don't like, it becomes a bit harder to guess this one. But United's so like yeah. What would be if you're looking at the price of Anderson? What would be the top price Man United should pay for Anderson? Like, is it a fact that if Anderson was available for a certain price, most people would say, right, he's going to be a good option. But you think, but I think Anderson also, I think he could be priced too highly. I think that he's good, but I think there's also players that can be just as good. I mean, Nottingham Forest haven't exactly controlled the Premier League, so you do need to have good players around you. And if United spent all their money on Anderson, how much money would they have for other players in midfield? I think it's like a legitimate. conversation. So Leeds haven't won the FA Cup since 1972. And Brazilian combo Cunha and Gomez surfing together. Yeah, that would be good. Well, I'd say that Stephanie, but Casemiro is at the club. Casemiro is Brazilian. He can still do that if he wants to get involved. He can get involved if he wants to. Um, Anderson needs a relegation clause in his contract, says Mark. There is actually quite a few. Legally, they're not allowed to be called clauses, but there is actually quite a few provisions in the contract of Anderson, and a lot of it depends on where Forest finished this season. Avoiding relegation pushes the price up. Getting European football next season pushes the price up. Um, so it's probably going to be that Anderson would definitely cost at least 80 as a minimum, potentially over 100. That's roughly what they think. If Nottingham Forest got relegated, the price would go down. Maybe you're looking at below 70 then, but he's not going to be very cheap. They signed him for 35 million a couple of years ago. He's obviously improved a lot. Nottingham Forest want to keep Murillo. They want to keep Anderson if possible. If they got European football, so yeah, they're not going to be selling him for a cheap price. That's just not going to happen. Yeah, thanks everybody for clicking like. Please subscribe if you're new. We're getting close to 700, I believe. I think closest to that. So hopefully we can hit that. Maybe we can hit that tonight when we do a massive call-in show. And this might be one where everything we're talking about today, we can also get individual guests when they join the call-in show tonight. We can actually find out from a range of people as well what people think or what people's thoughts are. And welcome, Readers Are Better. You'll also be, I think you're free to anchor the call-in show as well with myself, and I'll message Helgi as well. But big call-in show, trying to get a lot of guests on tonight. So if you want to get involved, there will be a link in the comments to join. That should be hopefully a productive debate. I'm guessing midfield players might be on the menu, but we'll see if there's any other breaking news as well. And Wizardbet says we cannot play 70 for Baleba. At best, is currently a £50 million player. I think most people are thinking that the price could be lowered, but maybe like lowering it to 50 might be difficult. And maybe it's like 60 is like somewhat middle ground. I think honestly, like this is the first time really that I think Brighton have actually set a price. Like last year, the media set a price. I don't think Brighton actually set a price. So I think this is the first time we're actually getting information from Brighton of how much Baleba's going to cost. And maybe this is the indication that Brighton are now right. Let's start negotiating. Let's get a deal done. And I think if they say 70 and Man United, like if we say 50, it's probably too far away. But if we then go up slightly, put some add-ons, I think we're getting close. I think most people would be, I think most people would be not surprised by the final price if we did get this deal done. Like it's not going to be 90, is it? It's not going to be 80, 90. It's not going to be like 40 to 50. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. It feels like the Man United and Brighton. It's like watching a glacier. It's slowly moving. But I think there's going to be no surprise what happens. I think we're going to see like a bid go in at some point. I think it's going to be a bit like Mbeumo. The first bid will probably be a bit too low. Then we'll have like another couple of weeks. Then Man United will go right. Actually, let's be serious. What is this deal actually going to cost us? And then we probably have like negotiations over add-ons. It should be quick, but I don't think it will be. So, as Mark said, don't forget to click the like. Don't forget to and follow. Let me put a link to the Discord. If you're on Discord and you want to get involved, let me just put a link to that as well because that's something to get involved with. So if you follow socials, I'll just put this in the chat quickly. If you want to be kept up to date with like potential streams and other things we're doing, particularly if like you want to join a call-in show as well, you're welcome to join a call-in show. That will be tonight, hopefully 7 p.m. That's the plan. So hopefully 7 p.m. there'll be a call-in show. Everybody's welcome. As long as your internet connection is good, they can come on, have your say. But we'll be trying to do like one in, one out with guests. So I don't see how Anderson is valued at 100 million. So say Forest 2 seasons, had one standout season. This is exactly the same as last season, though, isn't it? This is exactly the same as last season with Baleba. So, and Baleba last season, one standout season, Anderson a standout season. Then if Anderson goes to City? Will people then, like, if he goes to City and doesn't necessarily play lots of games, will people then look at Anderson as being too expensive? So and that could be a factor. So also overpricing is, I think this overpricing at the moment is genuinely probably Coutinho and Declan Rice and Caicedo and Florian Wirtz, and there's just a big track record of midfield players going from Premier League teams or to Premier League teams for above 100 million. So it seems that those deals are kind of pushing the market up. Like Declan Rice is a good player, but 110 million. I mean, Caicedo is a good player, but the amount he costs. I mean, they're good. For some reason, midfield players seem to be carrying a premium. I don't know why. I find it strange that good goalkeepers like Lamans are actually really cheap, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of midfielders that are incredibly cheap deals. I say it wouldn't be the first time. Yeah, Calvin Phillips, people forget his first name because he never plays football anymore, does he? But Jack Grealish, expensive. And the fact he's expensive doesn't mean he's going to play. So Anderson might not play loads at City. Everybody thinks he's going to be in the first team week in week out, but you never know. Like you never know what Man City want. Like maybe Anderson's going to be first team player, maybe he's not going to be, and maybe Fernandez is also going there as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if City actually have other players coming in. Like if they're losing like one midfield player's been confirmed to leave. If Rodri goes as well, they might be looking for something different. I'll say we've got the butcher. That I don't think anyone's. I'm not going to say that about Delete. A bit harsh. No. And what are the nicknames for Yor and Aiden Heaven? Yor and Aiden Heaven could potentially be a long-term partnership. They haven't got any good. They haven't got any good nicknames yet, have they? Exactly. Enzo, City are after Enzo. City are after Anderson. They might not both play, so they might not both be starting. Who knows? Like he says, so you're saying Carlos Baleba and Alex Scott as the first two midfield players signed. There, would you prefer Alex Scott or Baleba? That's a bit of a tricky one. Say with Baleba, which the better looks at Baleba in this way? Say younger player, and say he's going to go up or down initially. Has he been found out? And is it going to be like for you? You prefer a Gume at £30 million as our first signing, which again, that's quite good value for money, isn't it? That's the same way as me saying that Bawadi potentially would have been available for similar money. But no, that is believers' inconsistency something that's expected at this age as well. It's just going to be very difficult to kind of guess what the situation is regarding, whether he's going to suddenly get better, better, and better to this one. I see that's definitely you have to see if that takes on. Maybe we should like speak to JR tonight and see if he can get some like feedback from the Stretford end as to potential nicknames as well. Maybe push them out there as well. Maybe you could suggest it to get the match going fans on board. That'd be quite good. Solly says there needs to be a cap on player sales. Let the rest of the cost be paid on success, fitting in and saying £250 million on players not working out is ridiculous. I think what they're looking at this one. Do you think they're actually? So you're saying we're selling too many players at this point. But no, looking at this, so Agume, Kamara, Joe Gomez, all cheaper and offer more. I think the only difference is going to be that with saying offering more than Belieber, some of these players haven't actually played in the Premier League. So I don't think Man United are going to be. I think we're going to sign a few players, but I think we're going to be looking at least a couple of players that played in the Premier League. I'd be surprised if we sign three. If we sign three, I say selling players above 100 million. and it not working out is ridiculous risk. Yeah, yeah. I think if you get players, if you look at getting players that have never played in the Premier League, I think there's going to be maybe one signing potentially like that, and that's going to be. I think Man United would be looking at it and going, right, we get too many, or someone like Angela Stiller. I would be surprised if we got both of them because I think we would rather go for players that played in the Premier League already, unless they think that maybe one Premier League player too many's obviously got the experience, and Angela Stiller they do rate, and you've already got Kobe Mainoo. So I think all together when our midfield's done, we're going to have Kobe Mainoo plus three others. I think at least two of them, if not three, will have already played in the Premier League. And we might be looking at potentially a too many as like the most expensive non-Premier League signing. But I think everybody thinks that we're going to go for Angela Stiller, don't they? If we go for Angela Stiller, then Ravel's definitely making some decisions, isn't he? So what I should do is I should close the poll. I'll take 5 minutes of questions, I think, before we wrap up. But there will be big calling show tonight at 7 p.m. Get involved. So over 100 votes on this one. Excellent for people getting involved. Should Man United pay £70 million for Baleba? I thought it might be a bit negative. I thought people might not be happy with that sort of price. I think 60 would have been like a 50-50 one. And anything below would certainly be positive regarding paying for that. But should United pay £70 million? No, say 62%. Yes, say 38%, almost like 60-40. But it seems like, if I'm going to guess, I think £60 million is roughly the average price people watching would be prepared to pay for Belieber. I would say that's probably slightly above Alex Scott, and it's obviously above João Gomez, but it's below too many. It's below Adam Wharton. I think it's so below Anderson, below Tonali. So it's probably in terms of players we're linked to. I would say Belieber in terms of where we think the price is going to be. I think it's roughly halfway through. Like it's roughly kind of mid-table in terms of like the players we're linked to that are realistic targets. And big up to you, Daz. Hope you're having a good day, Daz. I don't know if you're around tonight. We're going to do a big call-in show, so we'll get a lot of different fans on. That should be a fun one. Last week was quite good. We did get an angry Arsenal fan on, so we might have to um, just get Man United fans on, or just get people on that talking about Man United. But so without the knee injury, you drop 70 on him straight away, but now it's like 50 to 60 million. Yeah, it's become a different factor, isn't it? A different factor that without I hate having this injury kind of hanging over him because if there was no injury issue, I would be like, let's get this deal done. And I think the injury issue is kind of like meant that he probably hasn't been as good this season, but it still concerns me because I just think Mason Mount, Luke Shaw's career, Phil Jones, like, no, we can't have another Lissandro Martinez or De Ligt situation if it's avoidable. Like, there's a lot of midfield players out there. If there is an injury issue, I would be generally walking away, but we'll have to see. It has to lower the price though, and Brighton have to accept that as the case. And say, well, Shay Lacey has been given a chance before, but no, interesting that these are things that we maybe we'll talk about before the season starts, that there will be potential. I mean, maybe Lacey's still got a chance to get involved this season as well, still. If United pick up points in the next couple of games, Champions League football might be secure, so we might be seeing Lacey get some minutes anyway, which I think is like a good thing. So yeah, no, I think the Neymar deals are very, very expensive. If anything, one of the things that the conversations over the last few days have like maybe prioritized, I think, is that Manchester United maybe they need to actually get look at the medical staff as well, and maybe look at the way they do medicals, and look at some of these issues as well. And so that if it is too risky, there has to be a significant reduction in the price, or there has to be a switch from the price being lowered to add-ons being met. So, like Yanni's saying, United do have to do a medical. So if there's issues, they find it would be sent back if the risk is too high. So I think they have to be more stringent with the medicals, and they have to be careful. And maybe they need to look at what medicals they're doing to try and get more information as well about the players. So, and that's something that should be happening. The medicals should be thorough. If you're looking at spending this sort of money, I think United need to look at maybe they've made mistakes in the past, or look at some of the injuries that players have got at the club. Have a look at some previous medical stuff for those players. Try and work out a better strategy. So I'm wondering whether I'm sure every club at the Premier League has actually got good medical staff. Like there's a lot of money in the Premier League, but I would just be yeah, I would just look at it and say it's something that you've got to look at trying to avoid. So I would actually say for Man United, it's probably worth spending a lot of money on medical facilities and making sure you get the like world class medical assessments done. And Wizard Better says it wasn't clever of Brighton to keep playing Believer with his knee injury, aggravating it, ruining his form. And say that's actually quite bad from Brighton. So if that's the case, and if Brighton have effectively not let Believer rest out too much, that's a problem, isn't it? And say thanks for the info, Yoli. Said we stole the doctor from Everton. We took the Crystal Palace head of medical science as well. So yeah, behind the scenes, I wasn't aware of people we'd taken, but yeah, behind the scenes, I think we should have good medical, like we should have a good medical team, and hopefully hopefully changing that up means that we can avoid those sort of things in the past. So yeah, this is why I think if Brighton are putting a high price on it, it's very difficult to justify that. Now, I would say thanks everybody for posting these comments because it is really something to consider, isn't it? That I know from like the start of the stream where people have reactions and go, that price is too high, and people are genuinely a bit angry about the price. But when you look into it, is that potentially with no knee injury and no problem at all, I say Mr. Reaper, who arrived from Arsenal, got booted out. So yeah, we've improved the medical staff. I think looking at this, when you consider how much money Man United are spending on players, then Brighton they haven't really managed this particularly well because if they wanted to get maximum price, they should have treated the injuries better with Baleba, and maybe that's going to be a factor. But I think United are well within their rights to actually say there is a worry now over Baleba's injury issues, and this is probably Brighton's fault. But that's why I was very positive about the player a year ago, and now I think it's like it's difficult, isn't it? Because in 12 months' time, Baleba could be an 80 million pound plus player, but he could also be a 40 million pound plus player. Sorry, 40 million pound player. So, the Carrington, and maybe this is part of the rebuild which didn't go. I know when we saw the tour of Carrington, it looked very good. I think this might be one of the things they're looking at as well. Said the Carrington rebuild has a state-of-the-art medical facilities. So I think players will be getting a thorough medical before committing to this. So if Man United make an offer for if we make an offer for Carlos Baleba and it does end up being like sort of 60 to 70 million pounds, you'd have to feel that Manchester United are confident that any injury is something that the player's working through and will be not a factor in the future. I will say I really, really hope that they don't gamble, but say if we're willing to gamble on Belieber, we should gamble on Camavinga. Is that Camavinga? I was going to say Camavinga, but Tchouaméni is the one that maybe sprung to my mind. That we should definitely be looking at that. There's potential information out there that Manchester United can garner that we can use, but having where is it? Having world class medical facilities is important, isn't it? So look, behind the scenes, we've taken the doctor, like I said, we've got the doctor from Everton, we've got Crystal Palace medical staff, we've also got we've got the chief operating officer from Brentford who was running things extremely well. So I think behind the scenes, apart from players, okay, so apart from players and things behind the scenes, we've actually been taking people from other clubs as well. So scouts, um, operating officer from Brentford, like I said, and other people, medical staff, coaches, etc. So United behind the scenes, United are changing things, and we have seen people leave the club and come in from the club, and hopefully this leads to actually making a better decision. Because when they've got all the information at hand, it would be quite eye opening if Man United did a medical on Belieber and then walked away. That would be That would be a new, but maybe it would be actually reassuring if they feel it's not a risk, if they feel it's too much of a risk. Welcome to the chat. So I personally wonder why United is always slow in getting players. And it's funny how Fabrizio keeps saying for months that we've not yet decided. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I would say this when you're looking at it about incompetency. I think sometimes the difficulty is Fabrizio has to do something. Fabrizio has to do some content every single day. And to be honest, Man United are actually trying to stop more information going into the mainstream media as well. So now maybe what it means here is that Manchester United, we've got a list of players, we've got a short list. I don't think we're going to sign players that we're not aware of, but also every single player we're talking about, whether it's going to be Anderson, Tonali, Angela Stiller, Tchouameni, they've all got other clubs interested. They've all got other options. So United might easily have an option, but again, all I would say is that with this one, if Man United want to get, there's probably a few certain players they could get done quickly, but I think you're right. It feels like they're slow, but what tends to happen is when Chelsea sign a player, they've probably been working on this deal for like 6 months. When Man United sign a player, everybody's aware of every single stage of the transfer because it's in the media. So Man United can't really do things um, under the radar because people report on it, people talk about it, whereas every other club can get things done. So United scout players for years, the same way that other players, other teams scout players for years. It's just honestly just get some. It's just in the media more. Manchester United are a bigger club, so it feels slower. That okay, we are slow as well, but it feels even slower because everything gets reported. Like I think with City, no one cares about City really, do they? So the Anderson story with City, they've been working on that for months and months as well. They've got things in line. I mean, Arsenal were incredibly slow with Gyökeres and Sesko. They were stringing Sesko along for ages and ages. So I think there's like loads of stuff in there. I say it's not often we hear about a medical cancelled. Milan was about to buy Mateta from Palace, had a knee issue, and say he had an operation after that. Milan got some good tests. We should do those. I think so. I think so. Big up to you, Daz. So question for Daz and everybody else as well, but Daz kind of like specifically, um, how much would you pay for him, Daz? Like you're saying, if you're so I think it's changed the for some reason it changes the comments a bit on here. So, but in the comments when I'm reading it, it says you're saying you're a believer. How much would you pay? Yeah, well, I think Leicester City are kind of dropping off the radar, aren't they? Like, no one. I think Leicester City are a League One team now. I think Manchester City they're big in terms of um, where they are in the league, but in fan base a little bit small. Daz, you pay 60 million. I think 60 million is roughly the deal. Like, I think 60 million is the sensible price. So, and I think Brighton know that. I think Brighton are actually thinking, let's make sure we get some money from it. So saying 70 means Man United will go, how about 50? And then, they should be able to meet in the middle in about 5 minutes, but it'll probably take about 5 weeks, unfortunately. So I think what will happen is we'll do a stream, we'll discuss the price, we'll come out with what's a sensible middle ground, and then Manchester United will take about, I don't know, 2 months to reach the same conclusion with Brighton. It seems to be how it works. I don't know why they take so long, but unfortunately, that's it. If they take too long, though, the price will just go up. That's unfortunately inevitable. Has City ever filled out a stadium? I don't know. I think when Sky Sports start putting City fans in boxes, they're going to make it almost impossible to fill out the stadium, aren't they? So I don't know what is the stadium's capacity. Like I guess when you say about has City ever filled out the stadium, we go there once a year, so they definitely when Man United are in town, it's definitely full. But I can't speak for the rest of the year. I don't know. So it's full at least once a season when a big club turns up, but I don't know what it is for the other games. I don't even know what the capacity is, to be honest. But they can't really make it anymore because European Champions League matches they have to give tickets away, don't they? They have to like give tickets away to schools and things to get fans in there. There isn't a demand. say 52,000 seats. And they got a smaller fan base than Newcastle United and a smaller fan base. I would say Leeds United would fill out that stadium. Like their fan base, I think would fill that sort of size stadium. I don't think Man City can though. It's just historical. They just don't have a big fan base. I think Aston Villa would probably fill it out as well. But yeah, no, to answer your question, it's probably full once a year, I'm guessing. Potentially, it might be full for Arsenal games, possibly. Say 52,900 though. I think maybe they're a bit ambitious when they built that stadium. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna have to head off. Is there like a final question? But big up to people that just tuned in as well. Thanks everybody for clicking the likes. Yeah, I think it's one price to watch the game, but you get if you pay more to face the other way, don't you? I think Arsenal fans will fill it, but I think Man United fans will fill it 100%. And actually, our record at Man City Stadium is actually pretty good, isn't it? But yeah, I don't think this is one thing that's also, if you notice that sometimes in the chat there's Liverpool fans, sometimes there's Arsenal fans. I don't think I've ever seen, we're not seeing any City fans in the chat, are we? And there's a reason for that. It's because they're YouTubers in a box somewhere. Big up to you, Stephanie. Thanks everybody in the comments as well. I'm live tonight, big show, 7 p.m. So tune into that if you want to get involved in the call-in. That should be very good. City is saying they fill it out every single. They must be using like more illusions and like Vegas magicians if they want to try and pretend that's full. I think Penn and Teller would have to get some mirrors out to try and make that look like the case. But big up to you, Luke. So 7 p.m. That's roughly 7 hours from now. The big call-in show. Get involved if you want to get. Everybody's welcome to like jump on the stream and actually have a say for like say about 10 to 15 minutes. But that's what we're hoping to try and get everybody involved. Please share the stream with people if you know fans that enjoy football content, and please subscribe. If you've been loitering in the background watching, please click the like, subscribe if you're new. There should be pinned social comment as well if you want to get involved in the socials as well. Exactly. I think I've heard that City actually have amplifiers to pretend there's more sound or like pump in fake sound. I don't know if that's true or not, but to pretend that people are there that actually care about football. But yeah, it is possible. It is possible. I don't know. A big up to you, Genghis. I have to wrap up now, but I'm going to be live tonight, 7 p.m. UK time, for the big calling show of the week, Sunday night calling. And hopefully we get a few callers, a few matchday fans will get involved, I'm sure. But then, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.